Hello, my name is Elias Kanaris and welcome to another episode of Leadership to a T. I'm here with my guest, Steve Blake from New Zealand Home Builders. Steve, welcome to this episode.
Thank you, Elias.
So Steve, I've known you now for about 4 years and I've been really impressed with you. In fact, I know that you've been doing some consulting to your son and his business partner at New Zealand Home Builders. And you had a vision that you shared with me a little while ago. Now, I want to make sure that I've got this correct, to build 10,000 homes in 20 years. Is that correct?
Yes, we've got 18 years to go from when we first set that goal.
Wow, that's an incredibly ambitious goal. I'm impressed by this, and I really would like to ask you, how did you come up with this business idea?
Well, actually, it started off. First of all, I always wanted to. I just felt something about property, about becoming a residential property investor, and it really started where I was working in Australia at the time, and I wanted to have 4 houses so my dad didn't have to work.
Yes, fantastic. Well, I got to say that I have personally benefited from a relationship with you because I've got a portfolio of investment properties, and I did what I suppose a lot of Kiwis will do. We'll create a retirement fund out of investment properties. But I think had my eyes a little closed because I went down the traditional route of thinking about investment properties. And that was to go to a real estate agent, find a property and see something that had a good return on investment and work my way through. But you really started to open my eyes up in terms of what was available out there, how to think differently. In fact, today we had some time together on a workshop about thinking differently. And if I was to ask you, if you have had opportunities to learn from experiences, from failures, from other opportunities that come your way, what have you learned from those opportunities that helped you to think differently yourself?
One of the biggest things, it's not about what I'm trying to achieve, it's getting, for me to be successful, I have to help others be successful. And especially in property, I really love the fact when I get a chance to sit down with people and let them share with me what they're trying to achieve, because a lot of people think it's just about having X amount of houses or whatever, but it's actually the benefits that they are going to get from that. So I love just asking them questions just to see if they've really thought this out. And then it's interesting, you'll know within a few sentences what's important to them.
I love that because questions, as Alan P says, questions are the answers. Yeah. And if you can engage somebody, ask the right questions, you can really work your way through. In fact, as I've observed you over the years, I really noticed that you've taken a completely different stance in how you approach with your customers. Many people can come into a market as a commodity supplier. They're there based on price. Now, in a commodity market, as you know, all you can focus on is price. And at the end of the day, the price goes down, so does your profit margin. But I've seen you develop a relationship that helps your customers to position yourself as a trusted advisor, probably the other extreme in terms of the spectrum from a commodity supplier. So what is it that you have done that helps you become that trusted advisor?
A listen up front, right? The very first meeting is probably the most important, because actually it's interesting because there's no pressure. There's no pressure because I haven't gone in with an agenda when I first sit down with those clients, because I don't know what they're going to tell me. They will tell me what they're wanting, and with a little bit of just sort of drawing that out, they'll tell me what they're really meaning also. So that first client meeting is awesome because there's no, because with property there's no such thing as one size fits all. We at New Zealand Home Builders, we personalise the investment property to suit that client or those clients. Yeah.
So when you look at this opportunity, you're obviously talking to business investors who want to look at their investment portfolio. You're talking to presumably first-time buyers as well as another part of your market, maybe even commercial. And I'm sure that in a market that's as competitive as we have at the moment here in New Zealand, it can be quite challenging and frustrating to keep a client going and working their way through. So what do you do to motivate yourself to keep on going? I mean, 10,000 homes in 20 years, that's a big ask.
That is a big ask, but it's not when you break it down to see, now it's, so if you do the sums, 10,000 houses in 20 years means to say you're doing 500 a year, but it doesn't start off at 500. You start off with a smaller bite size because you have to build your team around you. You have to build trust also with the clients, because the smart thing about building houses for investment clients is if you do a good job the first time, they're going to come back again.
Absolutely.
And that's that's the perfect scenario. I've got a passion because every year less and less people in New Zealand own their own home, percentage-wise, and I find that sad. My wife and I never bought our first house until I was 30, and we had 25 rental properties. Wow. Now, it was just getting that first one, and I made some very good choices, and I made some dumb decisions, but that was in hindsight. So it's because I wasn't clear on what I was trying to achieve. So when I sit down with my client or clients, I like to get very clear on what they're trying to achieve.
So if you look at that and you look at your experiences, and you've made some good choices and maybe some dumb choices, we all have. When you're younger and first starting out in business, you can have that fear about making the wrong choices. So if you think about your greatest fears, either in the past or current or going forward, what would your greatest fears be, and how do you manage that fear?
Well, I never had any fear when I started off. And so that's probably why I made some choices that I certainly wouldn't have made. My only fear is that I'm not doing the right thing by the people that are entrusting me to build a home for them. Or, we're not just talking a few $1,000s. We're talking probably in the last week between $300,000 and $700,000 in investments for rental property. So those are very, very big buying decisions. And so the only fear now, I don't beat myself up about it, but I always have that perspective of long-term looking for that client, long-term looking through. So the only fear I have is that I'm not being honest when I'm talking to them.
Fantastic. So as we come towards the end of this particular interview, Steve, if you were to offer 3 pieces of advice that you would give people concerning, how they can become entrepreneurs, how they can expand and invest, what are the 3 pieces of advice you might offer somebody?
Be very clear of what it is you're going to get in business with. It must be something that you've got a passion for. You've got to have a real passion, because things don't always go right. So if you're doing something that you really enjoy, when I walk out of a client's house or whatever, I actually am really on a high because it's something I'm meant to be doing. So that's one thing. So if you're very clear of what you're doing and what you want to do, the second thing is make sure your clients, you understand their needs. You've got to really understand what it is that you're doing and how you're going to help them. And the third thing is long term. Whenever I am talking to people about, and it actually happened to you when I would have asked you that question yourself, what are you trying to achieve in the next 10 to 20 years? Because I want a long-term goal. I want my people to understand, or the clients to understand, what they're trying to achieve long-term, because then every decision is a simpler decision, because you're not just making spur of the moment or short-term decisions, you're making very long-term decisions. And so those choices are very simple.
That is fantastic, and I appreciate that, Steve. So folks, as we just conclude this session, there's 3 things that Steve just mentioned. Number 1, have a clear vision about what it is you want with your clients. Number 2, understand your client's requirements. And number 3, make sure it's a long-term relationship that you're looking to fulfill. 3 incredibly powerful yet simple messages for us. So if you want to grow your sales leadership and make more profit, just go and do that. Have a great day.